Hey guys, Oscar Combs here with the ISO 9001 group. How are you guys doing today? I hope you're having a great day. I know there's a lot of crazy stuff going on right now in the world, but hey, we're going to get through it. You know, I was talking to a client the other day and they asked me a question. Why does ISO 9001 require us to do all of these unnecessary things? Right? My initial thought was, well, that's a pretty good question. But then I started thinking about, well, what do you consider to be unnecessary? You know, I need to kind of understand what are you referring to when you say all of these unnecessary things that ISO 9001 requires. For you guys who may not know, ISO 9001 is a quality management system that is published by the International Organization for Standardization, therefore called ISO. All right, so ISO 9001 is literally the most popular standard in the world. Like you go throughout the entire world, ISO 9001 is the most required standard and the most popular, meaning that it is the most required standard that your customers maybe would be requiring you to have. Like there's many other ISO standards for safety, ISO 45001 for environmental, ISO 14001, and you know, we can go down the list. But the most popular is ISO 9001, which is a quality management system. Now, many times organizations that complain about doing all of these unnecessary things that are required by ISO 9001, from my experience, they lack one thing, one common characteristic, and that is the lack of discipline. So ISO 9001 does require your organization to operate within structure, within discipline. Now, if your organization is used to just kind of doing things on the fly and thinking of one thing one day and making a major change the very next day, or just doing many other things, you know, you may think that some of these things are unnecessary. So here are a couple of examples when I asked the question, well, what do you consider to be unnecessary? The client said, well, why do we have to take all of these minutes? When we have meetings, why can't we just have our meeting, talk about things verbally, and everybody leave? All right, so that's one thing. The second thing was, when we do training, have on-the-job training, why do we have to document, who we train, when we train them, what do we train them on? Like, why do we have to document that? Why can't we just do the training? Another thing she said was, well, why do we have to use purchase orders? You know, we like to just call our vendors up. We have a long-standing relationship with these vendors. They know what we need. We just call them up and place the order. Why do we have to spend the time and write a purchase order, right? So many of these are just three examples. The client was just explaining or really complaining about why does ISO 9001 require us to do all of these unnecessary things. So I would like to talk about why, just using these three examples. There's many other examples I could use, but just using these three examples, why these things are necessary. And not only are they necessary for ISO 9001, but I'm sure most of you guys will agree that this is just necessary to run your business. So here's one. Taking the minutes when you have a meeting is very important. Many organizations have many meetings, and people leave the meeting. They don't take down the action item. They come back into the next meeting and nothing is done. And then no one really remembers what was talked about in the previous meeting. So that's one great benefit of taking meeting minutes, or ISO 9001 would refer to this as a record of communication, so that we're able to refresh our memories. We can drive accountability. We can make all the things that we talk about in the meeting actionable, assign them to someone to actually execute. So that's number one. Number two, the reason why we need to keep training records is so that we can document the training that someone has received within our organization. So when it comes time for someone to execute a certain function or to do a certain project, we're able to see, well, who has the experience, who has the skills, who's gone through the necessary training, so that when this function or activity is executed by the individual, that we know that they have the proper training and experience to execute it properly. And then we don't have all of the waste and the mistakes and the customer complaints that sometimes happens when we don't document training, or when we utilize someone that's not trained to do a certain activity to do that activity. So the last item, the last example that she used was purchase orders. Well, purchase orders are, she felt that purchase orders was unnecessary. Well, purchase orders are very necessary. The client didn't understand why it was important to document the order versus just calling and placing the order. Well, many times when you document an order, not many times, but when you document an order, what it does is that it actually specifies what your requirements are. Versus if you just call verbally and place an order on the phone, and the person on the other end gets the order incorrect, or maybe they don't understand what you said, maybe they had a bad day that day, right? There's many other variables. So you taking the time to write a purchase order or a PO, documenting your requirements, submitting those requirements to the vendor, drastically reduces the chances of all of the mistakes, especially on the receiving end. So when you receive something, you want to increase the chances that you're going to receive what you ordered. I'm sure we all agree with that, right? So I'm sure you guys all agree that these things are very necessary. They're not necessary. They are very necessary. So these are some of the things that, when you implement a quality management system or a safety management system or environmental management system, what you're really implementing, guys, is discipline, the culture of discipline within your organization. So remember that when you implement these systems, you're putting them in place because it's going to help you not only in quality, not only in health and safety, but this discipline is going to help you in your sales, in your marketing. It's going to help you in your accounts and receivables, collecting your money, right? The discipline to follow processes and to follow established guidelines and procedures will just become the culture in your organization, and it'll go way beyond just quality, all right? So these are the reasons why your customers are asking you to implement management systems such as ISO 9001. It is not because these things are unnecessary. All right, guys, so I hope that the information that I gave you today was somewhat beneficial, and if you think it was, I ask that you like the video. Share the video. Also, you may want to subscribe to us. This video will be posted on our YouTube. You're probably watching it on another social media as well, but go to our YouTube channel and subscribe to the ISO 9001 group. Oscar Combs here with the ISO 9001 group, helping organizations improve their operations and reduce their risk. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye now.